Hi, friends. I decided to get on a bandwagon of a very popular story. And a lot of that is, yes, to get attention to what I find valuable to share. So I am using it for that. And that is the story of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. And I'm using this story because it's also an example of not just how ego works, but how my ego works. So, one of the things that I will tell you first is that people are either their authentic self or they're reacting to something that should not be happening, in which case, who they are is their automatic ego. And so, when somebody is in their automatic ego, in their reaction, they will inevitably provoke a reaction in others. So before I say more about Meghan Markle, let me tell you more about how ego works, automatic ego. So our ego is formed by the age of 17, 18. When I work with clients, what I learned from my teacher is to look at their life until the age of 20. And unless something radical happens after that, for the most part, they follow the same kind of routine identity formation. And our sense of self, of who we are in the world, roughly happens around the age of 5, 6. And who we are in relationships happens around age of 10, 12. So let me tell you about my ego. Around that age, when there was a new girl in school who got a lot of attention, I became competitive to try and get ahead. Now, here's an important truth. Underneath that sense of like I have to be competitive or I am determined to get ahead is something I cannot be with about myself. It's a decision I made about myself that I don't want the world to know. And that decision is that I feel ordinary. And now, the decision that I'm ordinary, one can dismantle that in a nanosecond if that thought wasn't tied into the whole emotional fabric of who we are. So I'm afraid of being ordinary, but the fear is not what's running the show. What's really keeping it in place is the shame. How dare I be ordinary? Ashamed. Like somehow I should do more than this. How you heal ego is not by trying to not now be ashamed of it and say like, I'll be proud of my determined self. No, that won't work because that's like putting a cherry on top of a mud pie. It's still a mud pie. What one really needs to do is allow the shame to be, expose it. Part of the reason I wrote a newsletter about what I'm sharing right now is because I want to expose that dirty little secret that is having me feel rotten inside because I'm trying to cover it up and be a good girl and try to appeal to other people, not realizing the simple truth that the more you try to hide, the more what you want hidden is actually being exposed. So the hard work of dismantling ego is actually to allow it to be, to realize that it's a construct made up by a child in distress. I mean, I wasn't in that much distress, but when I was 10 years old and I never had to fight to be seen, all of a sudden, there was a new girl in class and she was rich and she was very ambitious. And I made up that in order to get attention, I have to fight for it. And that gave me this whole new personality where I actually come across as very ambitious, determined, and competitive. And that is actually not my true self. If I didn't have to, I would ideally have people just come to me because that's how I would ideally live my life. And that's really my story. About 6 years ago, I reached out to one of my teachers and I wanted to have a quick fix to my jealousy. I wanted to look at it. Little did I know my jealousy was tied into this incident, and it wasn't just being jealous, it was all these other things that were really running the show and running my life. I was continually justifying myself, and it was hard to notice that because for the most part my life was great. I had a great husband, I had great kids, and I loved my clients and my work, but there was a sense of, when things didn't go my way, I didn't have a grapple on it, and I could become a monster. And until I realized the monster that I could become when things don't go my way, and how I justify things and create this pattern, I wasn't free. So the key is not to continue the old pattern or to try and change the pattern. The key is really in just being with it. And when you apply no change to something that already is, that something begins to lose its grip on you. And, the more I grappled with my jealousy, that actually is tied into this shame, because I'm jealous and then I'm ashamed that I'm jealous, and it's a vicious circle that I can be in forever. I mean, I spent hours trying to justify why I did or did not like Meghan Markle. I mean, she was the center of my universe 7 years ago because I just got myself into that addictive pattern without realizing what was running the show. And thanks to her, actually, I realized what it was. So because of the platform that Meghan Markle has, and that she's the person that we all know and we can all weigh in. And that's kind of not fair, to be honest. Like, we don't know her that deeply. Now, there's a lot of things about her out there, and we can look at inconsistencies. Like, she said this and now she's saying this. And frankly, I have clients in my life who say, yeah, but you told me that. And because of my one-on-one call with them, I can tell them, yes, but that was inside of this context. And now that the context shifted, what I mean is actually this. And we have to give people in public eye the same courtesy that said, it's a price you pay when you are that famous and you have a large platform and you can create like a little bit of content and you have so many eyeballs on it. It's a privilege. So how do you use that privilege? It's a conundrum. And I don't know what you think about that.